Hello everyone, welcome back to the Doctrine, Dogma, and Davide podcast. My name is Davide, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Today is the feast day of St. Patrick of Ireland, and so I wanted to take today to talk about just 3 lessons that we can learn from the life of St. Patrick. Now, I'm sure many of you are already familiar with the life of St. Patrick, but I hope you'll just bear with me for a moment as I give a quick synopsis of the life of St. Patrick to those of you who maybe aren't so familiar with his life and his work. So St. Patrick was born sometime in the 5th century, probably around the mid-400s. And so St. Patrick grew up around the time of the fall of the Roman Empire in what used to be Roman-occupied Britain. His father was a deacon and a tax collector, and his grandfather was actually a priest. But just to clarify, this was before clerical celibacy was a universal rule of the church, though it was still customary for many bishops to remain celibate, even though it was not a binding discipline of the church at the time. But St. Patrick growing up was not really very well connected to his faith. He didn't really take it seriously. In fact, he claims that when he was 15, he actually participated in a pagan ritual. But when he was 16, he ended up being captured and taken to Ireland as a slave. He remained as a slave in Ireland for 6 years, but in those 6 years as a slave in Ireland, he ended up turning in his struggle and in his hardship to God and became very fervent and developed a rich faith and a rich prayer life that he never had before when he was living a comfortable life in England. And it was around this time that he started having dreams and visions of God giving him instructions to do this or that. In fact, it was during his 6 years of enslavement that he first started to dream about the Irish people asking Patrick to bring Christ to them and to preach the gospel to the Irish people. But eventually, one day, he had a dream where God told him that your ship is ready. And so he walked probably about 200 miles to the coast in order to find a ship there. The captain initially didn't want to give him passage, but then Patrick went away, he prayed for a while, and then somebody called him saying that the captain was waiting for him to arrive so that they could depart. And so he boards the ship. They end up getting lost and stranded, they almost starve, he prays, and then some pigs come and they eat the pigs, and so he saves them all from starvation. But he eventually makes it back to England. He makes it back to his father's home. But as soon as he returns home to Britain, he begins having more and more dreams about the people of Ireland and them yearning for Christ. In fact, in one dream, he sees an angel that hands him letters written by the Irish people that he reads in his dream, asking him to come back to Ireland in order to teach them the faith. And so Patrick, finally, he studies to become a priest. He is eventually ordained as a bishop and then goes back to Ireland in order to help convert the people of Ireland to Christianity, as well as to support the few Christians that were already there. Contrary to popular belief, St. Patrick didn't bring Christianity to Ireland for the first time. He was just the first one to bring it so successfully. There were a few Christians in Ireland at the time, but they were very few and far in between, and they were heavily persecuted. And of course, like with many early saints, there were a lot of sort of legends and things that cropped up around him. Like you've probably heard the story of St. Patrick banishing the snakes from the island. But this story doesn't really pop up until the 7th century, and so my thinking is that it's probably just a myth that popped up after the fact. Though there are sources from the time period that do claim that St. Patrick did perform many miracles, including many healing miracles. And so with that, I want to now dive into the 3 lessons that I think that St. Patrick can really teach us today. And the first lesson, I think, is his incredible patience. Because like I said, St. Patrick was captured and then taken away as a slave for 6 years. Imagine spending 6 years as a slave and just praying every day, praying constantly, and just, trusting that the Lord will take care of you. Trusting that if it is the Lord's will that you should be free, that you will be free in the Lord's time. And indeed, it took 6 years for the Lord to tell him, your ship is ready, you can leave now. Additionally, when he eventually made it back to Britain, which took a very long time because they kept getting lost, he then had to study to become a priest. But because he was captured when he was 16, he was so behind on his studies and on his schoolwork that it took him 15 years in order to become a priest so that he could then go back to Ireland And so I think that St. Patrick's incredible patience is a wonderful lesson for us today, especially since we are very much a society of instant gratification. And I think that oftentimes we are just so anxious for things to happen quickly that we have very little patience for allowing things to happen in the Lord's time. And speaking just generally for myself, and I think also speaking for a lot of young people these days, I'm not where I expected to be by this point in my life. I just turned 26. Today is actually my birthday. But I think that the life of St. Patrick is a great reminder for me that I need to be patient and trust in the Lord's timing, and that I should just do whatever I can to be a faithful servant of God, and then God will take care of the rest. That God will enact whatever plans he has for me so long as I continue to follow him faithfully. Now, the second lesson that I think that we can all learn from St. Patrick these days is his practice of constant prayer. When he was a slave in Ireland, he says that he awoke before the dawn, even in rain, sleet, and snow, in order to kneel down and pray, and that he was saying over 100 prayers a day, many times. And so he prayed when he worked, he prayed when he ate, he prayed when he woke up, he prayed when he went to bed at night. He was just constantly praying. And I think that that's something that we need to incorporate in our daily lives as well. We need to be praying not just every day, but we need to be praying all day. After all, St. Paul tells us that we should pray without ceasing. We should make all of our daily activities an offering to the Lord. Even something as simple as just saying, Jesus, I love you. Jesus, I trust in you, at various points throughout the day. Maybe set an alarm to pray the Angelus at noon, or something like that. Just constant reminders that the Lord is in control, and that the point and the purpose of our lives is to know, love, and serve God. And that our every waking moment should be dedicated to the service of God in whatever capacity our vocation happens to be. We might not all be called to go to a far-off country and spread the good word of the gospel through evangelization and missionary work, but we are all called to dedicate our entire lives to the Lord. And the third lesson that I think that we can really learn from St. Patrick today is his poverty. If you're watching or listening to this podcast, then there's a very good chance that you live somewhere in the first world. And here in sort of the Western world, we have become a very materialistic society. We live with so much that we don't need, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But especially during this season of Lent, it's important to remember that we are not called to be wealthy. We are called to be poor, even if that is poor in spirit. St. Patrick, in his Confessions, talked about how he refused to accept any gifts that people would try to give him. And so he would only accept things that he absolutely needed for his very survival: food, clothing, shelter. In fact, he even says that he would refuse to accept gifts of shoes because shoes were not necessary, and he would either make his own or trade them for things that he had made. And so I think that that is a great example to us and a great reminder for us that we are meant to be in the world but not of the world, that maybe we can do without a lot of the luxuries that we have, and that maybe we should try to reduce our dependence on these things, that we should not be so attached to them. Because a lot of the things that we rely on for our day-to-day needs, a lot of times we view them as things that we absolutely need, when in actuality, we don't really need that much. Which, of course, is one of the reasons we have this season of Lent, where we have a tradition of giving up something that we like, or maybe even something that we thought we needed, but we actually can do without, even if it causes us great inconvenience. And so I think that emulating his spirit of poverty would be a wonderful benefit to all of us. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this short video up. A quick side note, remember to wear something green every single year. I forget to wear green on St. Patrick's Day. It's my birthday, and I always forget, and so every year I get pinched on my birthday. I remembered this year, so this is your reminder: wear something green. But with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was spiritually fruitful for you. If it was, be sure to like, comment, do whatever it is that people of the internet do, and I will see you all next week. God bless you.